everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be covering obviously quite a serious topic, and so I would like to preface it by saying that the coronavirus is a problem in people with underlying health conditions and the older generation. This virus has the potential to literally be deadly, so it is completely understandable to be worried, anxious, upset, just distressed by the goings on at the minute. And so with this video my intention is not to downplay that in any way. Sorry, my cat's just using the cat flap. Not to downplay that in any way or make light of it. So I'd really like to say that as the first thing for this video. This is simply me sharing my thoughts as somebody who honours nature, as a paganism, as a Wiccan, what I think about this and different ways that we as pagans and Wiccans can interpret what is happening at this time. So the first thing I want to do before I talk about this is just for myself and everyone else watching to just take a really big deep breath right now. Okay, so inhale and exhale. The door just shut above me, that was weird. So basically the reason why I want everyone to do that is because when we are stressed out about things like this, we can often forget to breathe, we can forget to be aware of our breath. And the beautiful thing about breathing and breathing mindfully is that when we do it, if we look at the same problem before and after, that problem seems a lot less terrible after we have had a nice deep breath. We can look at it again with more fresh eyes, a fresh perspective, a more calm perspective. And so that's really the vibe that I want everyone to have going into this video. So with that in mind, we're talking about paganism and how we as pagans can interpret this virus and the panic surrounding it. So paganism is really about balance. It's about the balance of the light and dark, masculine and feminine, and life and death. So this is generally why people in Wicca choose to honour both a god, some archetype of divine masculinity, along with a goddess as well, an archetype of divine femininity. And this is to help maintain balance in a spiritual sense of masculine and feminine, light and dark, life and death, etc, etc. It's all linked. So paganism, as I said, is all about balance, and it's about honouring that balance, be it, again repeating myself, light and dark, life and death, masculine and feminine. So when we talk about our modern day, unless you have been living under a rock for some time, you'll probably be aware that in the history of our species, humanity, it's never before been quite so abundant of an existence as what we now have, quite so filled with light and life. Things can be very easy for us. We have modern medicine, we have technology. All of these things can really help us to avoid a lot of the dark sides of life, a lot of the things that would cause us suffering and pain and physical health issues. Whilst they can still be an issue, of course they're always going to be an issue, they are less of an issue, I would say, at this point in history than they ever have been before in any era previously, because it is only very recently that we've had access to things like antibiotics and all that kind of stuff that just helps us to survive and helps us to live longer and all of that kind of stuff. So this is of course a lovely thing, don't get me wrong, it's so lovely that we can have such easy lives now filled with such abundance. It's so easy to find food, it's no longer a struggle. We don't have to stress ourselves out so much the moment we notice a cough or a sneeze, because we know how most colds and flus work. We can take medicines for them that we never would have had before in history that can really sort us out. And this is amazing because it does mean that we can get on with our actual lives and being productive people rather than constantly living in the grip of fear and paranoia of getting sick and dying, possibly. So don't get me wrong, this is an amazing thing. I'm not at all saying, advocating that we should go back to the Dark Ages in any sense. But what I am saying is that in paganism, we really have the attitude, generally, most pagans, I think, that humanity isn't really above any species. As we honour nature, we recognise that humans are intrinsically linked with nature. We're not above it, we're not its rulers. We may be more intelligent in different ways, but we are intrinsically part of nature. And as I said, nature is intrinsically very much a balance of light and dark and life and death. So I'm just looking at my notes on my phone, by the way. So yeah, so we are intrinsically all a part of nature, and we're all capable of being both light and dark within ourselves as humans. So what I'm trying to say is that this balance is very important. And when we look at the ecosystem, if the balance of that ecosystem gets upset in any way, be it because of humans or any other species, we can often see that nature really has a good way of resetting itself, and basically creates physical consequences for whatever species has created the imbalance, be it physical consequences or sort of more subtle karmic consequences. So for every action there is a reaction, essentially. If we upset the balance of nature, we can expect nature to retaliate, and this obviously isn't good, but it is the reality of nature, I believe, and so it's something that we have to deal with. If we want to live on this planet, in this existence, we will have consequences for our actions. And so, which is with a heavy heart that I say that it's pretty obvious that humans have caused a lot of damage to the environment, a lot of pain and suffering to animals. We've caused a lot of pollution, and it could be argued, I think, that the coronavirus is really a way of nature to try and take back control. If something comes along that reduces humanity's numbers, of course that's terrible, but in the grand scheme of things, in the bigger picture, from a bird's eye view of the world and nature and everything, balance, everything that I've said about, it might not be, well, it might be a necessary thing, basically, because we as humans, not necessarily people individually, but collectively as a species, we generally have kind of used the environment as a bit of a resource to be exploited, and perhaps not honouring it as much as we should as our home that needs to be cared for and treated with the utmost respect, essentially. So, you know, as I said, this whole thing it will inflict a lot of suffering, and that is terrible. And for anyone who has been, will be, is currently suffering the effects of this epidemic, I am deeply sorry. My heart goes out to you, and to be honest, it's not even about the physical symptoms of the virus, although of course that is terrible. It's a lot of people are suffering just from the anxiety of the situation. It's really very terrifying when you see the headlines, hearing people in the street talking about it, and there's just a lot of paranoia right now. And if you are somebody who suffers from anxiety internally at the best of times, it can be very hard to look at the world around you and see that you can no longer look to the world around you for calm support, because the world around you is also freaking out, essentially. And that's something that I personally have been dealing with. I do suffer from anxiety, and it has got a lot worse since all of this has kicked off. So basically I can empathise with anyone who is really struggling in an anxiety sense, let alone actually having the virus or anything like that, or knowing anyone affected by the virus. Okay, so with that said, what I really want to emphasize is that this fear that is coming in, although it's not pleasant, it is what life is all about. It's about the balance, and it's going to be very frightening for us when the scales tip to equal out the dark and the light that each of us have in our existences. That is going to be very unpleasant, because we have got so used to the light side and life being a guarantee, essentially. We've got so used to that when the balance does tip to equalize nature in the world, it can be very distressing. It will be very distressing because we're just simply not used to this. So this whole, the reason why people might be panicking so much is because the thought of this virus and nature and the unseen forces being in control and we're no longer in control is really a very foreign and daunting concept to us, now that we have got so advanced. So it will be very foreign and daunting, but this is the natural state of being. Like it or not, it's just the way it is, and we only have to look at ancient civilizations and the deities that they created, the deities that they conceptualized. People from ancient civilizations, we can look back and see that there are so many deities associated with death, pestilence, plague, healing as well. All of these things were central themes in people's lives, and yeah, as I said, it's only very recently that these have not been really at the forefront of human consciousness, this worry about pestilence, plague and death. So for example, you look at the ancient Greek god Apollo, and he was considered a god of many qualities, a god of healing, music, poetry, but also a god that could inflict plague on us if need be. So again, I suppose in each deity we have that balance of light and dark. He's a god of healing, but also a god of sickness, I suppose. So technically this could be comforting in a sense, that at least in the grand scheme of humanity and our history as a species, this is not unnatural, this is not something that we've never dealt with before. And really what we can do is we can use this time to be very mindful of our ancestors, our ancient ancestors that dealt with these kind of fears every single day, and exactly how they felt when Mother Nature showed her dark side to them, as she frequently would do. So in terms of how I'm going to be dealing with this going forward and how I would recommend for others to deal with it going forward, number one is, of course, wash your hands, carry hand sanitizer if you have it. I know that lots of shops have been selling out and things like that. But, wash your hands after coming home from going out anywhere, don't touch your face, all that kind of stuff, the common sense of how we can prevent the virus spreading. But another thing that we all must consider doing now is essentially self-isolating. And the good thing about self-isolating is, of course, it makes the virus less likely to spread, it makes us less likely to catch it and less likely to then transmit it to other people. But another thing that it does is, perhaps as a secondary consequence, is it really reduces our impact on the environment. So fewer people will be heading out into their cars to drive to different places now, fewer people will certainly be flying to different countries, and airplanes really create a lot of pollution. And so the key to self-isolating and really staying where you are and staying put and getting familiar with the environment around you and grounding yourself, this is good to stop the virus from spreading, but it's also good to reduce our impact on the environment, which obviously is a very good thing, because it depends what you believe, but I personally believe that these kind of epidemics could be Mother Nature basically fighting back a bit for all of the ways that we've treated her that aren't so great. So really, if we can stop the virus from spreading by self-isolating and also stop the harm to Mother Earth, that's two birds with one stone essentially, and that's something that I recommend to people at this time. And in terms of self-isolating, it may be hard for people to think of what we can do, like if I can't go to the shops, what am I going to do with my life? If I can't go to these events and meet up with friends, then what am I going to do? And really, I mean, if you're watching this video, you're probably quite spiritual already, and so what I would recommend is really tuning into your spiritual practice, using this time to help you to connect with, as I said, our ancestors, really reflect and perhaps do meditations, connecting with your ancestors, the ancient people, the first humans, and use this time to just be very mindful of that. And that can help with anxiety as well, is just feeling grounded and connected with the world at large, the history of humanity at large. That certainly helps to make me feel more calmer about this. So I would recommend that. And in connecting with our ancient ancestors, I think that as pagans we can also connect a bit better to some of the ancient deities that we might choose to honour, because after all, they were conceptualised by our ancestors. And yeah, this could be a really great time for spiritually reflecting and awakening spiritually and feeling very grounded and tied to the past, and viewing that in a positive way, without the noise of the world sort of coming in around us and all these modern things. We can really just go within and find those answers for ourselves of how to feel grounded and connected to ourselves in these times. So another thing that is interesting about this is many of you probably work with tarot cards, and this time in particular where everyone's talking about self-isolating, really the first card that jumps out to me when I think about this time is the Hermit card. So I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, the Hermit card in tarot is something that I will be keeping in mind over the next few days and weeks and months and however long this lasts, because really it's a card of introspection, isolation and reflection. And this is a position where most of us are feeling kind of forced into, but this, although you might look at it and think he's sad and lonely, he's looking down, he's all on his lonesome with his solitary lamp, you know, it's you can think it's quite a cold, lonely sort of scene, but the positives of this card really are about recharging. You can recharge your energy from spending lots of time with people. As an introvert myself, I do get quite drained being with large amounts of people anyway, so we can use this time to recharge, recenter ourselves, ground ourselves, and remember who we are, connect to ourselves on a deeper level, so that when people are more relaxed about going out and about and we don't have to self-isolate so much, when that time does happen, we can go out into the world feeling refreshed and feeling like we know who we are, what our purpose is, and what we're going to do with our freedom. So let's remember why we're here, what our purposes are for our lives, and reflect on that, wait it out, a bit like the winter season when animals go into hibernation. They're waiting it out and they're waiting for spring to come so that they can fully come back with all the energy that is required. So this is probably going to be a temporary phase, fingers crossed. I'm sure it will be relatively temporary. And so let's look at this time as a time to go within, reflect and prepare for when we can go back out into the world. And let's make ourselves as strong as we possibly can be for that time, so that when we go back we have increased awareness and increased feelings of, as I said, being connected to our ancestors and our deities, whatever we like, just feeling really grounded in that. And that, I think, would be a very strong way for us to move forward. So in conclusion, I would say that we need to draw strength from the solitude that we are experiencing, and let's reconnect with nature. You know, going out in nature, it's not a high risk environment, it's not a hotbed of germs like cities are, and this is very convenient for us as pagans, because we can go out and be in our spiritual place, be in nature, and just enjoy that and feel safe in that, feel supported in Mother Earth and nature, and know that she has a plan, even though that plan may be scary because it's about the balance of life and death, light and dark. we can feel safe because we are a part of this universe. We are souls who have chosen to enter into this. Our ancestors entered into this as well, and we can make it through this. So I hope you enjoyed this little rambly video about what I think about the coronavirus and how we can feel like we're not freaking out about it, basically, because I know it's very scary. So hopefully everyone will stay safe, stay calm and stay healthy, and until the next time, thank you for watching my video. Okay, blessed be everyone.